Welcome back, True Seeker. I am dedicating this video to Max Igan Mark Passio and all the other truth seekers and speakers of the world. And while I appreciate what all these people do, it is irritating that so many people continue to ignore the knowledge that yours truly and others put out that really is the knowledge that people need to see to understand who is running the show. And again, when you have the knowledge, it becomes undeniable. And the Max Igans and the Mark Passios of the world, they continue to shrug their shoulders at the knowledge, and it is problematic. It is why we stay stuck. People do not have the knowledge they need to elevate their position to be where they should be in order to see through the games that are played with them each day and who is playing those games with them. And I'm just going to play a few quick excerpts from Mark Passio and Max Igan's discussion from this past Sunday. This is Mark Passio's channel, his latest episode of his podcast, What on Earth is Happening, number 263. First, I'm going to play this clip of Max Igan, and then we'll play a clip of Mark Passio. And then I will address what's wrong with what they're saying. So let's begin with Max Igan here. This is about 28 minutes and 45 seconds into the podcast. Listen to Max. Okay. First of all, let me check in with the chat because I know I'm doing this on StreamYard and they have changed some audio settings. Can you hear Max's voice? Let me make sure everybody can hear Max's voice before I go forward. Because if it's muted, then I have to change a setting. You could not hear. Okay. I hate that they made this change in recent months. Okay. All right, let me back it up a few seconds here and we'll try it again. This should work. Okay, here we go. This should work.
And all this sort of stuff. And we look at all the problems and the rabbit holes we go down. Okay, it's the Jews, it's the Jesuits, it's the Satanists, it's the Freemasons, it's everybody. And if I point my finger at them and we get angry enough at them and we make them all disappear, the whole world will change without me having to change my perspective or do anything. And the question is, like I said before, what makes you ever think you needed rulers to begin with? It's all of this programming that we've said that's been set in place for your whole life that you just never really understood yourself. You know, the perfect example I've got of this.
Okay. So, again, an argument they're making is that if we can just all collectively ignore authority and ignore the parties responsible, then we can solve the world. And there is an element of truth to that, but how are you going to get the millions of people who are under the thumb of authority to go along with that? When the way they see it is, hey, if I don't go to school, if I don't go to my job, if I don't pay my bills, I'm going to be out on the street. You know, that's a huge thing to overcome. So you have to get people to a place where they're willing to take this stand against authority. And, you know, to fast forward a little bit ahead here, I think it's right around here, around 37 and a half. Listen to what Mark says. And here, before I go any further, let me make sure we heard that last clip. Could we hear Max Igan? Okay, you guys said the last clip was good. Okay. All right, let's listen to Mark Passio now. And Mark said this many times before, because again, Mark is all about natural law and just staying in the lane of natural law and making 10,000 videos about the same topic over and over. And he always starts each video with, there's not going to be anything new today. You might not like the way I talk. And here's 10,000 different ways to donate to me. And it's like, why does he do this every time? I mean, why not cover something that you haven't covered before? Especially when it could add on to the point you're trying to make. But anyway, let's listen to Mark. Here he is.
Attacking people for not somehow putting out the solution that they think should be put out. Like, you know, you're not talking about this, or you're not making this the main focus of your talk. You know, it's like they actually believe that their little area that they've looked into and that they've become an expert in to get some street cred in whatever social circle they walk in is what's really going to free us. What's really going to free us is to make common sense, objective morality a completely common sense idea in the entire world, where everybody knows it as surely as they know their own name and aligns their behavior to it and doesn't step outside of the boundaries of those moral laws of creation. And it's not that difficult. If immoral behavior is not taken by human beings because no amount of bribe or money can be offered to them to do the immoral behavior. In other words, our measure of success has to be how many people are refusing immoral behavior regardless of the reward that is promised if they do it. So if you ask yourself, look at the world and tell me how many people are saying, even if I'm offered millions and millions and millions of dollars to go into the police force and take away people's rights as soon as someone commands me to do it, even if I'm paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to go into the military and maim or kill people the minute that I'm commanded to do it, whether it's morally correct or not. How many people are saying, no matter the reward, no matter the amount of money offered, no matter the social status offered, I will not behave and allow my body to be used as an instrument to do immoral behaviors, no matter what the reward offered to me is in the physical domain? How many people are stepping outside of those positions? How many people are quitting those positions? That's my measure of success. Max, what would you say?
Okay, so again, I actually like the point he's making there, but before he gets to the point about where we need a society that rejects doing the wrong things no matter how much reward they're offered, he's doing the same argument that he always does for why he doesn't cover other topics that are relevant to the discussion. Because if you're not familiar with Mark Passio, he's always talking about the exact same thing in like literally every broadcast. Natural law, natural law, natural law, which is an important topic, but at the same time, it's kind of like tying your shoes. Essentially, you could boil it down to, if you're a good person, the world will be better. If you're not, the world will be a worse place. It's a very simple concept. It takes you so far. Yes, he is right. At the end of the day, if everybody was that way, it would solve all the problems. Later, he's getting into how he can't believe people are so obsessed with the football game. Again, maybe people would be less obsessed with the football game if more people were definitively proving how rigged the game is. Mark Passio's doing this conversation on a Sunday. He could be out in front of the Eagles Stadium. He is in Philadelphia, on a megaphone or a speaker setup, educating them about how rigged the game is, how sinister it is, how people like Kobe Bryant from Philadelphia were sacrificed for a recent Super Bowl, and how his death is still connected to this year's Super Bowl and the death of Len Dawson on Kobe Bryant Day. Again, that's Chiefs and Eagles. And that is the Super Bowl. But anyway, these guys both, they both shrug their shoulders at certain knowledge. And then, Max Igan always has the routine message like, don't worry about who's doing it. Just understand that all authority is bad. It's like, don't worry about who's doing it? Like, in what world is that good advice? And then Mark Passio, I don't need to talk anything about anything besides anything but natural law. Also wrong. And earlier when Max Igan said, you can blame the Satanists, you can blame the Jews, you can blame the Jesuits, you can blame the Freemasons, that was almost a dig at Passio, because Passio blames everything on the Satanic Church, which he used to be a member of. But again, people do need to understand who is running the show, who's controlling everything from the money to the religion, to the sports, to the news, to who's behind the pandemic, really. These guys don't put it out there. They just leave that part of the message out of the equation. And I don't know who you're going to persuade in this world to wake up if you can't point out who is behind the evil. And it's so obvious. And here, I'm going to pick on Mark Passio because he's Roman Catholic raised, he's Jesuit educated, and he's a former member of the Satanic Church. And in his own words, he was handpicked by Anton LaVey, the founder of the Satanic Church. And sometimes I wonder if the reason Mark Passio doesn't talk about the knowledge is because he's only here to lead people so far. Again, I'm about to get into the number 201 and how it connects everything. And again, I once sat on hold through about 20-some episodes of his podcast before he finally took my call at the tail end of episode 201. And back when he did that, I had not unlocked the magic of the number 201 and how it really does bring everything together. But looking back, I'm like, was that a coincidence, or was that the day Mark finally decided to take the call symbolically? And again, there's no reason to not share this information on your platform. Again, it brings it all together. So Mark Passio, handpicked for the Church of Satan by Anton LaVey, the church's founder, who was born April 11th, 1930, and who died October 29th, 1997, just 2 days before Halloween. And who was the Pope at the time? The Pope was Pope John Paul II. Remember, he replaced the 33-day Pope who went to bed on the Jesuit order's birthday and never woke up again, who was likely killed with arsenic, who said he was going to get the mob out of the Vatican Bank. But here's the reason this is so perfect. Anton LaVey, born April 11th, dead October 29th in 97. So let's just measure from his birthday that year to his death. Notice, it was 201 days later. 201 days, okay? And from the death to the Pope's upcoming birthday at the time, he was born May 18th, 1920. May 18th, 1920. Whoops. I wrote 1920 instead of 1998, which would have been his upcoming birthday at the time. 201 days. So he died 201 days after his own birthday, and he died 201 days before the current Pope's birthday. And again, 201, very special number to the Jesuit history. Right now we're living in the time of the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis. Again, the Jesuits are from France originally. And he's the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican, and his birth name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, has a gematria value of 201, just like the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola, has a gematria value of 201. And here, I want to go back and replay what Max Igan said. I want you to hear Max Igan's list, which he's saying it's not that important. It's not that important who's running the show. If we would all just buck authority, it wouldn't matter. Again, that idea is just like, okay, so the authority who's done this to us shouldn't be held accountable. That would be an injustice in every sense of the word. But here, let's go back and listen to Max Igan's quote, and then we'll connect it all. How every group he names, how it can all be connected through this one number. Here we go.
Well, we look at action movies. There's always the lone hero who goes out there and saves the world, and we live vicariously through his journey. And we don't have to do anything to save the world because Spider-Man just did it. And that is a pressure relief valve for us as we go through the movie and all this sort of stuff. And we look at all the problems and the rabbit holes we go down. Okay, it's the Jews, it's the Jesuits, it's the Satanists, it's the Freemasons, it's everybody. And if I point my finger at them and we get angry.
Okay, so let's just bring together every last thing that these potential suspects, the Freemasons, the Jews, the Satanists. Again, we pretty much just brought that together with the Church of Satan and the Catholic Church. But again, Church of Satan, Freemasons, Jews. Okay. Of course, Freemasonry is Judaism for the Gentile. But gematria. Again. Here, let's just put it up on the screen. Make it easier. The most simple ciphers, the alphabetic order forwards and backwards. Manly P. Hall wrote about this in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Again, the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius of Loyola, 201. The first Jesuit Pope, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, 201. This number's all over the Jesuit history. Look into how they were preserved by Catherine the Great in the time of the Jesuit suppression. And by the way, the Pope who suppressed him, he waited until the first 201 days of the year passed before the suppression came. And he became Pope in history on the 201st day of his age, the same one who did the suppression. But Catherine the Great supposedly preserved the order with 201 Jesuit priests. protected in Russia, where the huge 201 Russia-Ukraine ritual's ongoing right now. But again, Pope Francis, who's born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, his birth name 201, he's the first pope to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican, and it's in an apartment that has a name, the Domus Sanctae Martyr, which is 201. And again, when you write out the Jesuit order, it's also 201. And when you write out Order of Illuminati, founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, it's 201. And when you write out Catholic Pope, it's 201. And when you write out State of Israel, it's 201. And again, that is the official title of Israel. And David Ben-Gurion, who declared it a nation, died in history 201 days after the anniversary of its establishment, just like how Adam Weishaupt, who established the Illuminati, died 201 days after the anniversary of its establishment. With regards to Catholic Pope equaling 201, the CIA was established September 18th, 1947, on Pope Pius's 201st day of his age. Gematria. Again, Manly P. Hall writes about this in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, based on the alphabetic order forwards and backwards, and also forwards and backwards with the rules of numerology. The CIA, again, established on the 201st day of the Pope's age. The words in the CIA's logo, Central Intelligence Agency, United States of America, 201. Let me get the CIA's motto again, I always forget it. The CIA's motto, the work of a nation, the center of intelligence. Guess what it equals? 201. Again, the difference here is you're just using the alphabetic order forwards and backwards, but with numerology. All of these things, 201. The 201st day of the U.S.'s age on the Catholic calendar that we tell time by, the Gregorian calendar, is January 20th, the day written 20/1 in history, 201. And in the U.S., every 4 years, we call that, the official title on the government website is Inauguration of the President of the United States, 201. And what's funny is the old Inauguration Day is 201 days after the Jesuit order's birthday, back when they did it on March 4th. The Jesuits were born August 15th. But again, look into the death of Joe Biden's wife and daughter on Limestone Road back in 72 after he became senator-elect, Limestone Road 201. Look into the death of his son Beau Biden at age 46, years before he became number 46, elected exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. He died exactly 201 days before the Pope's birthday, and the same Jesuit priest who did Beau Biden's funeral at age 46 did Joe Biden's inauguration as number 46. And his name is Leo Jeremiah O'Donovan, 201. So the only group we haven't really covered is the Freemasons. And here's one to look into. Look into the Masonic Lodge behind the Federal Building in Oklahoma City that blew up in 95 on April 19th, the day in history that Ignatius of Loyola became the first superior general of the Jesuits. The Masonic Lodge behind the destroyed building sold for $201,000. And who's the Oklahoma City bombing blamed on? It's blamed on CIA agent Timothy McVeigh, whose name is 201. And his accomplice was Terry Lynn Nichols, whose name is 201. And the same day that the building blew up, Richard Snell, 201, was put to death for trying to blow up the same building in 1983. And Robert G. Millar, how his name's written in the books, is who radicalized Timothy McVeigh, also 201. And counterterrorism, let me show you something. The U.S.'s first counterterrorism legislation was passed on Keating's birthday, who was the governor of Oklahoma at the time, and it was passed by Jesuit Joe Biden, who's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where The Office ran for 201 episodes. But on Keating's birthday, which was February 10th, 68 days before the bombing, the nation passes the first counterterrorism legislation. And then 68 days later, where terror's 68, and McVeigh was born in 68. See how terror's 94 and 68, so was Denver. The Timothy McVeigh trial was in Denver. 1968 is the same year World Trade Center construction began. 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. 94, the World Trade Centers opened on the 94th day of 1973, April 4th, the anniversary of the MLK assassination, which was 201 days before the first major gun control act in this nation in 68. And April 4th, the year MLK was assassinated, 68 was a leap year, which made it the 95th day of the year, like the Jesuits were created to counter the 95 Theses, going with the 95 World Trade Center bombing, going with the German Pope dying at age 95 on the last day of the calendar year. Martin Luther wrote the 95 Theses out of Germany. Think about the German Pope dying at 95 in the time of the first Jesuit Pope on the last day of the calendar year, named after a Pope. Again, a 52-week calendar for a Pope. But anyway, this knowledge right here. Again, Mark Passio just did a video on PSYOPs, and just like he said at the beginning of it, there'll be nothing new in this video for my audience because all I give you is the same thing in every broadcast. But again, he does a video on PSYOPs, and it's like, how can you do a video on PSYOPs in 2023 and not talk about Gematria? Every single psychological operation has the same number encoded over it. What they just did with the Tyree Nichols beating. They said the cops were fired on January 20th. 20/1 like 201 on the 201st day of the nation's age, where the jail in Memphis is on 201 Poplar Street. You know, the strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree. They compared it to George Floyd. Guess what's coded in George Floyd's name? George Perry Floyd, 201. His baby mama was Roxy Washington, 201. You know, they compared it to Michael Brown, 201. George Perry Floyd died exactly 201 weeks after Adama Traore, who was killed on the 201st day of the year in Paris, France, where the Jesuits are from, and the two deaths were protested together because they were similar types of deaths, similar types of stories. And in the case of Adama Traore, he was also born on the 201st day of the year. But again, from that to Uvalde, 201 days after Matthew McConaughey's birthday, to the Buffalo Top shooting on the 201st day of Hillary Clinton's age, who cut the ribbon when they opened the store on O.J. Simpson's birthday, another race psyop from the 90s where they found the crime scene on the day, leaving 201 days left in the year, to a million other things. This number is all over the rituals. Think about the World Trade Centers, the two massive towers that became zero before they became one, 201. Think about the coronavirus pandemic simulation, Event 201, put on by the Jesuit Klaus Schwab. Think about the death of Captain Tom of the Burma campaign one day before Burma's government falls to its military. Not to mention he died 201 days after being knighted by Queen Elizabeth, only for Queen Elizabeth to be diagnosed with COVID and then died 201 days later on the Virgin Mary's birthday. Again, this list goes on forever. And the knowledge doesn't take that long to educate about. I've been asking Mark Passio to teach about this. His own audience, whenever he has whenever he doesn't turn off all the comments in the live chat, his own audience is in there. Talk about Gematria. That's why I feel like when he does this little thing right here, I feel like he's actually talking to me. I'm sure he's talking to other people in the world, but there's not really anybody else in his chat asking him to cover any type of knowledge other than exactly what I'm bringing up right now. So I feel like when he says this, let me play it again, I feel like he's trying to explain why he feels he doesn't need to talk about, things like Gematria. He's just going to stay in his lane and keep talking about natural law, and if we all just tie our shoes and be good people, the world will be a better place. And it's like, are you really modeling what a good person is, though, Mark? I mean, to ignore other people, to talk a big game and then do nothing? I mean, seriously, you should have canceled this show, and you should have been out at the Eagles Stadium waking up the 100,000 people filing into that stadium that day. That would have been a great day to show what a big tough guy you are with the Eagles fans. And don't call me out for not being there, because I've done those exact things. And if I was living in Philadelphia, I surely would have been there for the NFC Championship. You want to know how messed up it is what they did with Kobe Bryant? Not only did he die at age 41 on the Pope's 41st day of his age while traveling from Catholic Mass, but from his last birthday to the day they declared the coronavirus pandemic was 201 days later. And where did they bury Kobe? In Corona Del Mar, right as coronavirus was kicking off. And Corona Del Mar equals coronavirus and COVID vaccine. This is a whole other subject. And who even knows if Kobe's dead, you know? His company, his media company is called Granity Studios. Go figure, another 201. You see how it's 201 and 177? The Jesuits like to bring those numbers together a lot. Captain Tom was knighted on 17/7 and then dead 201 days later. In fact, 2 days from now will be the anniversary of his death. Catherine the Great, her husband died from arsenic poisoning on 17/7, and then she saved the Jesuit order with 201 Jesuit priests. So on and so forth.